fellow classmates, the assigned multimedia project is to select one area of contention between two levels of government, my choice is federal and state, regarding a specific issue in environment and climate change. To describe the issue, what has been tried so far, and to make recommendations for possible resolution and/or improvement of intergovernmental cooperation. The outline for the remainder of the presentation is what is fracking, the history of fracking, alternatives, the advantages and disadvantages of fracking, the issue, resolutions, recommendations, and conclusion. So, what is fracking? Fracking is a process in which water, sand, and chemicals are pumped into the ground to enable the extraction of natural gas and oil. This process of fracking was first studied by the Stanoline Oil and Gas Corporation in the 1940s. Fracturing was used experimentally in Kansas in 1947 to extract natural gas from limestone. Beginning in 1949, this experimental technology was used commercially by Halliburton, an oilfield service company. Fracking applications increased during the 1950s. In 1970, downhole motors were developed to allow drill operators to adjust the drill string in order to drill wells horizontally. In the 1980s and 1990s, George Mitchell, head of the Mitchell Energy and Development Corp., invested between $7 million and $8 million to research and develop fracking and horizontal drilling and to extract natural gas in the Barnett Shale of Texas. Here are some advantages and disadvantages of fracking. Advantages are we've obtained more than 7 billion barrels of oil and more than 600 trillion cubic feet of natural gas. Those are some very huge numbers. Fracking has made it possible to the Marcellus Shale in the mid-Atlantic region, one of the richest natural gas deposits in the world. On the other hand, the disadvantages are environmentalists are worried that the chemicals released in fracking pollute groundwater. Secondly, the sheer amount of water that fracking requires has also raised concern. Each well can use up to 5 million gallons of water per year. Water pollution or wastewater is the waste wells can be thousands of feet deep. When under high pressure, it can cause earthquakes. And lastly, fracking would cause air pollution and create jobs that are dangerous for workers. So the alternatives to fracking, as well as promoting renewable energy, are to use wind, water, solar, biofuels, geothermal power, and biomass sources. So the issue at hand would be the vast increase in the use of fracking in recent years has made it perhaps the top environmental concern facing the states, and they also differ in how they balance those risks and rewards. On the flip side, it is only a recent policy concern for the federal government, which is really kind of scary. The federal government has, to put it mildly, a mixed record in dealing with the climate change challenge. So what has been tried in the past? President George Bush did not seriously address global warming. President Bill Clinton proposed to impose a tax on energy, which was rejected. Currently experimenting with the cap and trade plan, which is a system for limiting pollution by assigning allowances to polluters who can sell their excess permits if they succeed in reducing their emissions. In addition, the pledges that's on the table aren't legally binding, and they fall far short of what would be required to stabilize the planet's atmosphere. My recommendations are: safety standards must be strongly regulated and enforced. The toxic disposal of wastewater or underground disposal should be banned, or adopt an alternative method of disposal. I'm not sure what that would be. Air quality should be consistently monitored, and to impose legally binding laws to address fracking. In conclusion, proponents argue that the use of fracking has created jobs, lowered energy prices, spurred economic growth, and provided increased tax revenue at all governmental levels. Additionally, proponents argue that fracking has few health and safety risks, and that these potential risks have been and continue to be effectively regulated at the state level. On the other hand, opponents of fracking argue that the process has known and unknown environmental impacts and should be more heavily regulated, particularly at the federal level, or banned altogether. Additionally, opponents argue that the energy industry cannot be relied on to voluntarily protect the environment, and thus require additional regulations, particularly at the federal level. This brings us to the end of my presentation, my multimedia project on environmental and climate change. Thank you so much for listening and reading. Please post comments as usual on the discussion board. Thanks again.